Jocasta and Murtaugh's relationship is explored in the Outlander prequel, Blood of My Blood. This is exploring humanity through sci-fi. This rebrand continues my mission to get a better understanding of ourselves through sci-fi, fantasy, horror, and comics as our mode of exploration. Rory Alexander plays the young Murtagh, and Sive Mallon plays Jocasta, and they spoke in a roundtable setting. I'll kick things off. Great to talk to you both. Rory, again, it was a pleasure last time.
Nice to see you, Tony.
Yeah, let's go back to the first episode because that we can talk about because it's already aired. For example, there was a scene right after the victorious boar hunt, and you're washing your hands, and she comes on over. And Jocasta comes over. So talk about playing that scene, because I saw a little bit of a spark there. Maybe I'm wrong.
You're definitely not wrong. There's definitely a little spark there. I don't know. I think it's in that moment, so early on in their very long relationship, as we know. I think it's just fancying and seeing something in someone that you really, really like, and it's a crush, and it's young, and I think he's really kind to her, and I think it's a really beautiful moment for Jocasta, who kind of is not in her most ideal situation right now, and we've seen her kind of maybe in a being quite stern and quite there's feelings of being misunderstood, but we see her in this light, kind of beautiful, playful moment with a boy that a man that she's crushing on. So yeah, I think it's young and relatable, and yeah.
What do you say, Rory? You kind of glanced in another direction slightly there in that scene, if I recall.
Yeah, I definitely clock that there is chemistry between us. He is pretty focused on Ellen, but also I think he quite likes he's top of the, like you said, he's on top of the world. He's just been victorious in a boar hunt, and he kind of feels like things are going his way. And then Jocasta reads his eyes so quickly and kind of embarrasses him because, oh, I'll go talk to my sister for you. And I think he sort of suddenly spots that she does have this likeness, and that they can actually have quite a serious conversation, but in quite a sort of gentle, playful way. And I mean, he's only human. He is a young boy man, and the lovely Jocasta is in front of him. So although he has these feelings for Ellen, he's like, oh wow. And I think it's important that he does give her a compliment. That feeling of being overlooked is a really hard one, and Murtagh definitely feels that in his life, and with his sort of setup as well. So the opportunity to be able to say to someone, "All right, I see you," is very special, and it's a really good place for them to start, I think.
Well, great, thank you. I actually, just as a note, I'll be in Edinburgh in 2 weeks.
Oh, wonderful! What are you doing when you come over?
Vacation.
Lovely.
Sweet.
Yeah. More with Sive Mallon and also Rory Alexander in just a moment. The challenge of playing younger versions of the characters.
Yeah. Well, I guess, I mean, we all kind of, I think, spoke about this the whole way through filming. Like, it wasn't something that you were really able to obsess over, or, I guess for me, it was about finding the essence of Jocasta, and like small things like voice, and because I do think the way someone starts off their life as a baby, and as a young person, and the way they end, there's often something really in their essence that's very similar. So I do, for me, like, the essence was quite important, but then also like remembering how much Jocasta goes through in her life, and all of those experiences are what make her the version that we meet in Outlander. So I guess like trusting that like she's going through all of those things episode by episode that are going to turn her into who she becomes. So yeah, I guess trusting in that, and trusting that if that makes sense.
Mm. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Of you can't play the character like you've been through those experiences, and that's kind of the joy of getting to do it. Is you go, well, we are on one side of the veil, and then everyone has already seen on the other. Um, and there's little things like, Sive and mine's like kind of chemistry on screen might be different to theirs, but the same thing is true, which is that they have an important and deep connection. And I don't think there are certain organic things that you can just mimic.
Mm.
Otherwise, you fall into the realm of kind of being inauthentic. Um, and also, there are similarities that come through just by dint of being in the same universe. It's the
Yeah.
same family members, and like they're fighting the same. Well, they're not the same wars, but figuratively the same wars. So much of the similarities are kind of given to you by the world already, which
Mhm.
is really, really useful.
Would they make a good couple outside of the Outlander world?
I think in the world, if we weren't in the world that they're in, potentially, but I think there's so many reasons going against them. And like
Mm,
Jocasta is married, and it was arranged for her. Um, and yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons bigger than them as to why they couldn't. But I think in a simpler world, there's definitely there's definitely a spark there that could have been excavated.
hmm Yeah, I mean, same. Murtagh doesn't really have control of his life necessarily because of his family ties and things. So, and his kind of status and position. But yeah, you kind of hope that if you took all the other elements, just at the core, they definitely have a spark and a chemistry, and yeah, it's good. It's like it's good writing, but it's always sad that you don't get to kind of do more of it because you go, well, there is definitely something good to mine here.
Yeah.
I guess that's where the tension comes in.
Finding those emotions between them.
I guess, well, I
Mm.
mean, together, I guess trusting in each other and, um, and trusting in the writing. And I think what they go through is really like real and relatable. And I think they go through like a very imperfect, or the beginnings of a very imperfect love story. And I think uh, we all, anyone who's human knows kind of what that feels like. So I guess, yeah, trusting in each other, and like we're friends. So trusting in that too.
Yeah, again, trust is the key word, and I think you can do as much work as you like, sort of answering all the questions and thinking about the context and the emotional history and how they've got to these places and what's causing them to feel this way, and then you kind of just have to sit in a tent opposite Sive and do the scene, and that
Yeah.
you're not thinking about any of that stuff. You're just there, and that somehow that's all become ingrained in you, and then you just go, well, what happens if you touch my hand? How am I going to touch it back? And it just happens when you're doing it.
Mhm.
Because yeah, you can't kind of logistically plan emotions. You just kind of have to hope that something feels right as you're doing it. Yeah, I think because of our relationship and how Ema directed it and the script, it just went, yeah, this clicks.
What is the last thing you do and think before stepping on the set?
Sometimes I'll be like listening to music in my trailer to kind of get yourself into the right headspace, like some of like Bear's music, who obviously does the music for the show. Sometimes it's yeah, listening to the Rolling Stones just to kind of get the right energy and feel for it. I don't have like a line that I say to myself that like instantly makes me feel like Murtagh, I would say. Um, and it's hard because sometimes you're sat there having a coffee talking about what you did on the weekend and they're like, okay, and rolling. And then you go, here we are. Which is maybe unprofessional, or maybe it means that we're getting better at it. I don't know where the line is. Um, so I have any thoughts?
It really depends on the day, I think. Yeah. Like there's sometimes if like where I'll like really, really, I don't know, try get into like the create the thoughts that Jocasta's having and like really try create a stream. Um, I don't know, it's so hard to talk about that without sounding like a little without
Mm.
sounding like a proper actor. But I yeah, different things. Music is good. And I find sometimes as well, like sometimes I think if you have a scene, you like really, really care about it. And I think every scene you care about, but if there's a scene that really feels like huge for your character and you go in with all these like massive complicated thoughts and feelings and you're doing movement in your trailer, not that I've done that, but you're going to that extreme. And then you get to doing it and you've made the process towards the scene so complicated that you've kind of brought a bit too much to it. I think sometimes like um understanding it and connecting and being present is actually enough. Like you've done the work and you just have to trust that it's in there when you show up on the day.
Mm. Sometimes just before the camera rolls, I sort of talk to myself. Like I'll say, "Oh, I'm in this tent because I made a stupid mistake and Brian's not here," and then you kind of g yourself up into it. But I totally agree with Sive. You can outthink yourself and try and you become way too prepared. Um,
I don't do movement in my trailer, by the way. Sorry, I just really had to clear that up. I promise, I promise.
it's like, have you ever played Mario Kart? Like if you rev the engine at the start of the Mario Kart race, if you do
Uh-huh.
it, then your car just goes and you don't get a good start. Like you can't overcook it.
Uh-huh,
That's
yeah, I agree.
Is
that's a
my
great analogy.
academic analogy for today.
Mario Kart? Interesting analogy indeed. Here they talk about their costumes.
They definitely try and make them comfortable, but that doesn't make them comfortable. Especially if they get wet and then they start to
Oh,
smell, and then everyone smells like wet sheep. And then you're doing a scene where you're meant to be staring at each other, thinking like you're the hottest girl in the world, but we both stink of sheep. Um, but it is very useful because I get wrapped up like a burrito every day in my kilt, and after you've done that, you don't really feel like yourself anymore. You're 90% of the way to getting into character, so it is very helpful. But yeah, when you're doing long days in triple tweed, um, you finish and you feel like you've been carrying a military backpack for the day. It's quite a lot.
Yeah, they're heavy. They're really heavy. So like that
Mm.
dance scene in Belton was like, I'd love to know how much my costume weighed that day because it felt like I was carrying a few kilos on my on
Mhm.
on my dress. So prancing up and down was funny, but
So the women's costumes aren't any lighter.
no, I mean I don't
Mm-mm.
no.
have enough facts on this, but I feel like ours are probably heavier.
I think they could well be heavier. Everyone always looks forward to a scene where they're like, "Oh, you're not wearing a jacket in this."
Mm.
From 2 weeks off, you're like, "I can't wait to do that scene." And then on the day, it'll be like snowing, and you're like, "Wish I was wearing a jacket." You can't get it right.
No.
There's more on Outlander Blood of My Blood in a moment. You both have relatives in this series that you're close to. One's a sister, and I think Rory, he's more of a cousin to you, isn't he? Isn't that right?
Mhm. Yeah, he's my
So,
cousin.
so what's it like? Kind of describe that relationship and how you get along, or maybe at times you don't get along. What's it like? And ladies first, of course.
Um, yeah, I think there's, as we saw at the end or the start of episode 5, like I think there's the beginnings of a change in Jocasta and Ellen's relationship. But I think Ellen and Ellen's position, Ellen's relationship with their late father is a real outlet for Jocasta's kind of frustration and and discomfort in her own life. I think it's much easier to get angry at your sister. But I think there's the beginnings of a change, and I think, what they kind of their trip to Belton is a real step in the right direction. So I have hope for them.
Mm. Yeah, similarly, I think hope, but knowing that there's definitely going to be some family feuds along the way, which is nice because it means it's realistic. I have lots of siblings, and we're not always having picnics. Um, and so Murtagh is Brian's cousin, but they really are best friends. So sometimes it feels like there's a family duty, and sometimes it feels like they're actively making a choice. And that works both ways, where, if you betray one another, it kind of cuts double deep. But also, if you're looking out for each other, you're not just doing it because you have to, you're doing it because you choose to, because, like, you can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends. And in this instance, he kind of does both. Um, so yeah, it's sort of, it makes everything doubly powered, in both the positive and the negative.
That's what it's like being a sibling.
There it is.
Challenging and uncomfortable scenes, and also pleasant surprises.
Well, we've had some very uncomfortable ones on season 2 already, and we've only just started, so that's not a good sign. Um, I had an incident with a horse where I was stood on the mark for too long, and the horse, like the Mario Kart, actually, it got too charged up, and I was meant to just. It's actually in the start of episode 5. I come in and I tell Brian, "Come on, let's go to the festival." But the horse just galloped full speed into this courtyard, and there were 200 crew and a crane and all the lights and stuff. And I was riding over the cobbles, and as I came round, Jamie looked up, and apparently I was just manically giggling. And Jamie was like, why is he coming to this scene hysterical? I was like, "No, I didn't choose to do this. I was just my pure fear pouring out of me." Um, so yeah, that was a pretty sticky day, I think. I got it in the end.
We had one day the funeral scene at the very start of episode 1. It was actually an amazing day. But we went, I think it was in Crieff in Scotland. We traveled up there to shoot the scene. They had this amazing place down all these windy, windy roads. Like, if you imagine kind of like the most rural, undiscovered Scottish land, like down, it was wild, and it was amazing. It was so beautiful, and so many of us there, and so many essays and crew and stuff. I have never seen rain like it in my life, and I'm from Ireland. It was like rain that you could like see. It was like bullets, and just went and went and went and went all day, and like I just felt for like, yeah, it was like bullets. But they did it, and it actually looks amazing. So it was worth it.
Mm.
But yeah, it was
That
amazing.
opening, that shot of you guys on the road, and then like the really far, unbelievable.
Yeah, it's fabulous, fabulous shot.
Fabulous.
Fabulous. But yeah, but it was one of those days you're like everyone just laughed so much, and we had so much fun, and we were all together, and like, but like no one had any signal, and we're like, God, if something happens.
Hey, let's listen to those pleasant surprises.
There were loads. Sometimes it's just about doing a really, really good scene. Like our scene in episode 5, I loved doing, and I knew as soon as I read that script, I knew that was the scene that was kind of make or break. Like if we did it badly, I would have thought about it for weeks. So yeah, when things like that go well, or it felt like it went well, that's like really special. I think my first day filming was a scene I think it's cut, because it probably wasn't very good. And it was Brian and Murtagh by a fire, and before they go to the gathering. And I just couldn't really get my head around the fact that it was just two people in a fire, and yet we were in the middle of the forest. The cranes had lit up the sky so that it was starlight, and there was a fake moon. And Philippe, the chef, had been preparing an actual rabbit for us to cook over the fire, and he'd been seasoning it with like thyme and tarragon, and then there was a van that was giving us hot gyoza in the middle of the night, and we're literally in the middle of nowhere. And I just thought, this is like they've just created an entire world just so that me and this lad can sit by this fire and say 3 lines. And like it blew my mind.
That's a really good one. I think, yeah, I think there were so many days. I mean, there was like amazing days where like loads of us were in and, sitting in the easy up, and it's just like, not to sound, yeah, but it was just like laughing, just so much laughing, so much that you like go home with a headache, and I know probably every like cast says this, like, oh, we're all genuinely friends, but like we're genuinely really good friends. And it's like so lovely and cool that you get to go to for like people that you genuinely think are class. But yeah, I think those days where there's loads of people in and it's like you kind of like get so giddy and hyper, and you go home and your head hurts and people are like, do you want to go for dinner? And you're like, I have to go sit in a quiet room for the night, I think.
Yeah.
I think those days are really special because you're like, this is work. This is mad.
Big time. Doing the Belton festivals like that. I had the giggles at Belton for 4 days. Yeah. Everyone was there. And then you kept forgetting that like certain characters don't know other characters. So I kept giggling with Connor, who plays Ned. And I thought, hang on a second, Murtagh doesn't know who Ned is. But you just you go, right, come on. Professional. Be professional. Yeah, I think we are very lucky. Not to sound trite.
Yeah.
Outlander Blood of My Blood is on Starz in their first season, and of course, the original Outlander is available too. Here's some of the content on Sci-Fi Talk Plus. Special podcast episodes with companion video, podcasts with no commercials, uncensored, and even special longer editions for certain episodes. And there's also my Behind the Curtain series that I brought over from YouTube on Jurassic World Rebirth, Superman, weapons. I'm also working on The Conjuring Last Rites. Trailers like Avatar Fire and Ash and Invasion's new season trailer are available too. Try this multimedia experience free with a 1-year trial and then just $1.99 a month after. You can listen and watch on your desktop, laptop, or phone. You'll get a private RSS feed, and you can listen on provided players. Examples, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It's easy. Click on the link to start that free 1-year trial in the show notes. This is Tony Tellado. Thanks for listening.